Welcome friends to my channel. Today we continue the incredible journey of Moses, the man chosen by God, the leader of his people, the witness of miracles beyond imagination. From the deserts to the mountains, from trials to triumphs, Moses' story is one of faith, courage, and divine guidance. So sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. Listen carefully, feel the journey, and witness the power of faith in action. Are you ready? Then let's step into the next chapter of Moses' epic journey. In the quiet expanse of time, before empires rose and before kings carved their names into stone, there existed a world shaped by the heat of the sun, the breath of the desert wind, and the footsteps of people searching for meaning, hope, and direction. Among these lands, where rivers carved life into barren soil and mountains stood as silent witnesses to history, the story of Musa began, not as a tale of miracles at first, but as a whisper carried gently through the currents of destiny. The land of Egypt, vast and mighty, glittered under the blazing sun. Great monuments reached toward the sky, built by hands hardened through years of labor. The Nile flowed like a ribbon of life, feeding the earth, feeding the people, feeding the ambitions of rulers who believed themselves eternal. Pharaoh's throne stood tall, polished with gold, wrapped in jewels and guarded by soldiers who bowed at every word he spoke. Power had become the air he breathed, and pride was the cloak he wore each morning. Within this mighty kingdom lived a nation burdened by sorrow, the children of Israel. Their hands were blistered from shaping bricks beneath a merciless sun, their backs bent under the weight of years of servitude. Yet inside their hearts something endured, a hope, a memory of promises spoken long before. And this hope, fragile yet unbroken, passed from mother to child like a secret flame kept alive in darkness. It was in one such home of quiet endurance that a child entered the world, a child whose very existence seemed woven with protection and purpose. His mother held him close, sensing something extraordinary in the softness of his small hands and the calm in his newborn eyes. She named him Musa, though she did not yet know how deeply that name would echo through the ages. But danger loomed. Pharaoh, fearful of losing control, had issued a cruel decree against the newborn boys of the Israelites. His fear disguised itself as strength, his insecurity masked as authority. Soldiers marched from house to house, enforcing his command with cold obedience. The cry of mothers filled the nights, mixing with the desert winds. Musa's mother, guided by courage she did not fully understand, knew she could not keep him hidden forever. When whispers in her heart urged her toward a decision that defied all logic, she obeyed, placing the tiny child into a basket woven with trembling hands, and trusting that the river, guided by the will of the one above, would carry him to safety. With tears clouding her vision, she released the basket into the slow, shimmering water of the Nile. The river embraced the child gently, moving him past reeds and birds resting on its surface. The sky above remained mercifully calm, as though watching over him. And as destiny would have it, the basket drifted toward the very heart of Pharaoh's domain, toward the palace gardens, where the daughter of Pharaoh walked with her attendants, seeking refuge from the heat of the day. When she lifted the basket and saw the infant inside, her heart softened instantly. The innocence in Musa's eyes broke through the walls of arrogance surrounding the palace. She felt compassion, something rare within palace walls, and resolved to raise him as her own. The child who had floated helplessly down the river became a prince of Egypt, dressed in fine garments, taught in grand halls, and raised among marble pillars and golden mosaics. Yet even as Musa grew into a young man of intelligence and grace, the world outside the palace walls whispered to him. He watched workers in chains, heard their cries at night, and saw the harshness with which overseers struck them. A tug, subtle at first, pulled at his spirit. Something inside him recognized their pain, though he did not yet understand why. Years passed, and Musa became known for his calm presence, his reflective nature, his ability to observe before acting. He questioned things others ignored. He felt empathy where others felt superiority. Something within him refused to break, even as he lived among luxury. One day, under a scorching sun, Musa witnessed an Egyptian soldier abusing an Israelite man, striking him repeatedly, showing no mercy. Musa's heart raced, his breath quickened. All the injustice he had silently observed now condensed into one sharp moment of fury and resolve. Acting instinctively, he stepped forward, intervening. In the struggle, the soldier fell lifeless to the ground. Silence followed, heavy, unforgiving. Fear gripped Musa. Though his intentions were to protect, he knew Pharaoh's laws showed no mercy. Word traveled swiftly through the streets. By nightfall, Musa realized he could no longer stay. His footsteps carried him into the desert, away from the palace, away from the life he had known. The vast land stretched before him, a sea of sand and solitude. Days turned to nights. Hunger gnawed at him. The cold winds of the desert pierced his bones. Yet, even in hardship, a strange peace accompanied him. It felt as though unseen hands were guiding his every step, leading him toward a place of transformation. At last, Musa arrived in Midian, a land of calm, where shepherds tended their flocks and mountains cast long shadows across the earth. There, he found a well where shepherds gathered. When he saw two young women struggling to water their flock because others pushed them aside, Musa stepped forward once again, not with anger but with quiet strength. He helped them, expecting nothing in return. This simple act of kindness led Musa to the home of their father, a wise and gentle man who welcomed the weary traveler without question. Here, Musa found rest. He worked as a shepherd, guiding sheep through valleys and hills, feeling the rhythm of nature, learning patience, learning humility. Far from Egypt's golden chambers, he grew into a man of clarity and purpose. Years passed peacefully. Musa married, built a life of simplicity, and walked paths surrounded by mountains that seemed ancient enough to hold secrets of the heavens. Yet within his soul, a quiet stirring remained, an unspoken calling, like a distant echo he could not ignore. One day, as the sky shimmered with early morning light, Musa led his flock toward a mountain he had never climbed before. The wind carried a strange stillness, and the world felt unusually quiet. As he walked, he noticed something glowing upon the slope, a flame, bright yet soft, flickering without consuming the bush it rested upon. It was unlike any fire he had ever seen. Curiosity pulled him closer. And then from within the flame, a voice echoed, a voice unlike any heard by human ears, a voice that filled the air with power and peace at the same time. Musa, the voice called. He stopped, his heart pounded, yet he felt no fear, only awe. Musa, indeed, I am your Lord. Remove your sandals, for you stand upon sacred ground. The earth beneath him trembled with meaning. Musa lowered himself, humbled beyond words. The voice continued, I have chosen you. Go to Pharaoh, speak the truth to him. Command him to release the children of Israel from oppression. Musa trembled, not from fear of God, but from fear of himself. How shall I speak? He asked. My tongue falters, my voice is not strong. The answer came with calm reassurance. You are not alone, I am with you, and your brother Harun will support you. Together you shall deliver my message. The flame glowed brighter, as though sealing a destiny that had been written long before Musa was even born. And so began the journey of a man who had once been a prince, a wanderer, a shepherd, now chosen as a messenger. With staff in hand, heart filled with divine purpose, Musa prepared to face the greatest empire of his time, not with armies, not with wealth, but with truth, faith, and the strength of the one who guided him. This was only the beginning. Musa descended the mountain with a heart transformed, heavy with responsibility, yet illuminated with certainty. The air around him seemed different now, charged with a quiet power that followed his every step. Even the sheep he tended sensed the shift, walking behind him with unusual calm, as though they too felt the weight of the destiny unfolding around them. When Musa reached his home, the sun had already dipped below the horizon, casting a purple glow across the desert. His wife saw the expression on his face, the mixture of awe and determination, and understood without a word that something extraordinary had occurred. She listened as he described the shining fire that did not burn, the sacred voice that filled the air, the command to return to Egypt. There was no fear in her eyes, only trust, for she knew that the guidance Musa felt was not of this world. She packed provisions for the journey, wrapped warm cloth around their faces, and helped him gather what little they had. Before dawn, Musa set out with his family, the desert wind sweeping across the earth like a whisper of farewell. The journey back to Egypt was long, stretching across dunes that glowed gold by day and turned icy silver by night. Yet with every step, Musa felt a presence beside him, unseen but unmistakable. Each time doubt crept into his mind, a calm reassurance settled in his chest, reminding him that the one who commanded him would never abandon him. When the familiar outlines of Egyptian lands appeared in the distance, Musa paused. Memories from years past flooded his mind, the towering statues, the smell of lotus and incense, the sound of the Nile flowing gently through the city. He remembered the faces of people oppressed, the cries of those beaten by overseers, and the cold, unrelenting pride of Pharaoh's court. And then he remembered the night he fled, the fear pulsing through his veins. But now, returning felt different. He was not the same man who had escaped in fear. He was a messenger carrying truth as his shield. Before entering the city, Musa prayed silently. "Lord, steady my heart, strengthen my voice, guide my steps." After settling his family in a safe area, Musa sought out his brother Harun. When Harun opened the door and saw him standing there, older, wiser, changed, his eyes filled with emotion. The embrace between them felt like the reunion of two halves of a single mission. Harun listened intently as Musa shared everything: the journey, the divine call, the signs he had been granted. When Musa revealed the task they had been commanded to fulfill, Harun did not hesitate. "We will go together," he said. "You speak with truth, and I will speak beside you." With newfound unity, the brothers walked toward the palace gates. The palace had not changed. Massive columns carved with symbols of power rose into the sky. Soldiers stood like statues, rigid and unyielding. The scent of burning oils filled the air, mixing with the murmur of advisors and officials moving through the corridors. But this time, Musa walked through those familiar halls not as a prince, not as a fugitive, but as a messenger. When the brothers were finally brought before Pharaoh, the throne room shimmered with spectacle. Gold lined the walls, polished to perfection. Musicians stood poised with their instruments, ready to entertain at a moment's command. Magicians stood with confident smirks, always eager to display their skills. Pharaoh himself sat elevated above all, draped in fine fabrics, his crown glittering. His eyes narrowed when he recognized Musa. "You returned to the land you fled," Pharaoh said, voice sharp with mockery. "Have you come to beg forgiveness, or perhaps to serve me again?" Musa lifted his gaze, calm and steady. Harun stood beside him, resolute. "I return with a message," Musa said. "A command from the Lord of all worlds. Release the children of Israel. Their suffering must end." A wave of murmurs spread across the court. Pharaoh's advisors exchanged glances, some amused, others insulted. Pharaoh leaned forward, his voice dripping with arrogance. "And who is this Lord you speak of? I am Pharaoh. I own these lands. I decide who is free and who is bound." Musa answered without fear, his voice echoing through the hall. "The one who created the heavens and the earth. The one who brought you into existence and sustains you even now. You are not above him." Pharaoh laughed, long, loud, and cruel. The sound filled the room like a storm. "You dare speak to me of gods, you who grew up in my own palace, you who fled like a coward after killing one of my soldiers." Musa's expression did not change. He simply raised his staff, holding it firmly. "Signs have been given to me, proof that what I speak is truth." Pharaoh's laughter faded. "Then show me," he demanded. Musa cast his staff upon the marble floor. Before the startled eyes of the court, it twisted, lengthened, and transformed into a living serpent. Gasps filled the hall as it slithered across the ground, its scales glinting like molten bronze. Pharaoh motioned for his magicians. They stepped forward, confident, performing their tricks, casting ropes that appeared to move like snakes. Their illusions were convincing. The crowd murmured in awe. But Musa's serpent did not remain still. It moved with purpose, consuming the illusions one by one until nothing remained but stillness. The court fell silent. The magicians, seeing the truth with their own eyes, felt something stir deep within. They bowed their heads, whispering among themselves words Pharaoh would later punish them for. This is no illusion, this is truth. But Pharaoh could not accept it. Pride wrapped around his heart like armor. I will not release them, he declared. Your signs are tricks, your demands mean nothing. Leave my presence. Musa and Harun departed, not defeated but strengthened, for they knew this was only the beginning. What followed were days that shook the foundations of Egypt. Pharaoh refused every warning. His arrogance blinded him to consequences, and his people suffered as a result. The river turned to blood. The water that once nourished the land became foul and undrinkable. Fish floated lifeless on the surface. The stench spread through the streets. But Pharaoh hardened his heart. Then came frogs, leaping into homes, filling beds and jars and kitchens. People begged Pharaoh to relent, but he refused. Then came lice, tiny but relentless, crawling through hair, clothes, and skin. Still, Pharaoh's pride did not break. Then came swarms of insects that darkened the sky, consuming crops and filling every corner. Still, Pharaoh stiffened. Then came disease, storms, and darkness, thick, suffocating darkness that hung over the land for days. But Pharaoh refused. With each plague, Musa spoke the same words. Turn back, cease your oppression, free them. But each time, Pharaoh's heart became heavier, colder. And so the children of Israel waited, trusting Musa, trusting the one who guided him. They knew that freedom was near, but they did not yet know how dramatic, how miraculous, how unforgettable their salvation would be. For the greatest sign, the moment that would be recited for generations, was still to come. Night fell softly over the vast desert, wrapping the land in deep shades of blue and silver. The fires around the camp had faded to glowing embers, and most of the people slept peacefully. But Musa remained awake, standing at the edge of the camp, his staff beside him, his gaze fixed on the shimmering sky above. The quiet of the night was a kind of comfort, a space where he could think clearly, reflect deeply, and listen to the whispers of the unseen. He felt a strange calm, as if the heavens themselves were encouraging him to keep moving forward, to keep trusting even when the path seemed endless. He knew the journey ahead would test every part of their faith, but he also knew that God never abandoned those who believed. As Musa watched the stars, he heard footsteps approaching. It was Yusha, a young man with a brave heart and sincere loyalty. You have not slept, Yusha said softly. Musa smiled. Sleep will come. Tonight I watch the signs above us. They sat together in silence, the cool wind passing gently between them. Yusha finally spoke. The people fear what they cannot see. They fear the unknown. Musa nodded. Fear is natural, but faith is built in the unknown. God guides those who trust him, even when they cannot see the road. Yusha breathed deeply, reassured by his words, and together they looked toward the horizon where a new day would soon rise. The next morning brought a trial unlike anything they had seen before. As the people walked, the sand began shifting strangely beneath their feet. The desert felt alive, restless, unsettled. Then in the far distance, something massive began to rise. A wall of sand, spiraling, roaring, stretching across the entire horizon. A sandstorm unlike any they had ever witnessed. Mothers held their children closer. Elders trembled. The wind carried a low, threatening hum, as if the desert itself were preparing to strike. Musa, Musa, what do we do? The people cried out. Musa lifted his staff high. Do not scatter, stay together, God is with us. The storm barreled toward them, dark and violent. The wind began to whip at their clothes, sand stinging their faces. But Musa stood firm and called out, "My Lord, protector of all, shield us with your mercy." At that instant, the impossible happened. The storm curved. Like two great rivers splitting around a stone, the raging sandstorm divided into two walls, circling around the camp without touching a single person. They were surrounded by chaos but untouched by harm. People cried, fell to their knees, raised their hands in gratitude. Harun whispered, "God has sheltered us again." Musa nodded. "It is his mercy, always his mercy." Days later, they reached a valley unlike any they had seen. Tall mountains rose around them like ancient guardians, their peaks cutting into the sky. The people rested, but Musa felt something stirring in the air, a divine calling. That night he prayed long and deeply, and at dawn he gathered the elders. "God commands that I ascend the mountain," he told them. "For 40 nights I will be gone. Harun will lead you." The people were surprised, unsure, anxious. Musa reassured them, "Do not argue, do not divide. Hold fast to faith." He embraced Harun and began climbing the mountain. The climb was difficult. The air thinned as he ascended, the winds grew sharper, and the path became narrow and steep. But Musa felt no fear. He felt drawn upward, guided by a divine presence. When he reached the summit, clouds gathered around him like a cloak, glowing with a light not of this world. The air vibrated with a presence, powerful, peaceful, overwhelming. Musa fell to his knees, trembling yet calm. And then, from the radiant light around him, he heard the voice of God. "Musa," the voice said, gentle yet mighty, "I have chosen you. Listen to what I reveal." Musa bowed his head. "My Lord, I am here." And so the divine message began, words of guidance, laws of mercy and justice, instructions for a people who had long been oppressed and now needed discipline, unity, and purpose. Musa listened with his heart open, absorbing every word. Time seemed to disappear in the presence of divine speech. Meanwhile, in the valley below, the people waited. Days passed, nights passed, weeks passed. Some remained strong. Others began to worry, doubt, and whisper. Harun urged them to stay patient, to trust, to remember the miracles they had seen. But a group among them grew restless. "Musa is gone too long," they said. "Maybe he will not return." Their hearts softened to temptation, and they made a terrible mistake, one that would test Musa more severely than any storm or desert ever could. When Musa finally descended, carrying the divine guidance with him, he saw what they had done. His heart broke not from anger alone, but from sorrow. After all that God had shown them, after all the mercy they had been given, they had fallen. Musa confronted them, his voice heavy with both pain and authority. He reminded them of every miracle, every escape, every moment of divine protection. Many wept, ashamed. They begged for forgiveness. Harun explained how he tried to stop them, how he tried to hold the community together in Musa's absence. Musa turned to God. "My Lord, forgive them, forgive us. Guide us." And God, in his infinite mercy, accepted their repentance. There were consequences, lessons, and discipline, but there was also forgiveness. For God's mercy is greater than human mistakes. From that moment, the people grew stronger. Their faith deepened. Their unity solidified. The journey continued through valleys, over mountains, across barren plains and fertile fields. Every step shaped them. Every trial refined them. And Musa guided them with wisdom, patience, and a heart filled with trust in the one who had never abandoned them. Their story was far from over, and each new mile brought new lessons, lessons of courage, gratitude, discipline, forgiveness, and the eternal power of divine guidance. The desert night wrapped itself around the valley like a great, silent cloak. Moses stood at the edge of the camp, feeling the cool wind brush against his face as the stars glittered across the endless sky. The people slept in scattered clusters, exhausted from the journey, unaware of the divine planning unfolding around them. And Moses, with his heart steady but burdened, continued watching over them as a shepherd watches over his flock, not of sheep, but of souls entrusted to him by the Almighty. He remembered the night he first fled Egypt, young, shaken, and unsure of his place in the world. Back then, he had walked into the desert with nothing but fear and confusion. Now, years later, He walked through that same wilderness as a prophet bearing miracles. Yet the path of leadership was not a soft one. It demanded patience deeper than wells, courage stronger than mountains, and faith that did not tremble even when everything else did. As he stood alone, he heard quiet footsteps approaching. It was his brother Aaron, carrying the calmness that always balanced Moses' intensity. "Moses," Aaron said softly, "you have not rested." "I will rest when the people rest in peace," Moses replied, still looking toward the horizon as if expecting a sign. Aaron followed his gaze. "Do you fear what lies ahead?" Moses shook his head slowly. "Not fear, weight, the weight of responsibility. Every step we take, every complaint, every hope they place in us, it is all heavy." He paused. "But God is with us. That is enough." Aaron smiled gently. "More than enough." The brothers stood in silence for a moment, listening to the night wind whistle across the sand. In the distance, the faint sounds of the camp, snoring, murmuring, crackling embers, blended into a peaceful rhythm. Moses finally exhaled and turned back. "Tomorrow we move again." But tomorrow would bring something far greater than a mere day of travel. Morning arrived with a quiet golden glow spreading across the desert. The people gathered slowly, some already complaining about thirst, some muttering about the uncertainty of their journey. Moses was used to this. Leadership had taught him that miracles were easily forgotten when hunger and fear settled in. But today, Moses felt a strange pull in his heart, as though the air itself carried a message. As the camp prepared to depart, a young shepherd approached Moses, trembling. "My lord Moses, there is something you must see." Moses followed him to the edge of the valley where a large boulder stood, one he had passed many times. But today, beneath the stone, a soft glow flickered, faint, pulsing, alive. Aaron joined him. "What is this?" Moses placed his hand over the glowing patch of earth. It felt warm. Then a voice, not heard by the ears but felt in the depths of the soul, whispered to his heart, "Take my people forward. Fear not what lies ahead, for my mercy walks with you." Moses closed his eyes as peace washed over him. When he opened them again, the glow was gone. Aaron's voice was quiet. "A sign." "A reminder," Moses said. "God has not left us, even when they doubt, even when we struggle." They continued the journey through harsh valleys and steep cliffs. Days were scorching, nights freezing, yet Moses carried the staff with unwavering steadiness. Each step was an act of faith, and each miracle that followed strengthened the path carved ahead for generations. Some nights Moses would stand alone, speaking to God in whispers carried by the wind. He asked for strength, guidance, patience, and sometimes simply for ease. The people, however, did not always see the weight he carried. To them, he was the miracle worker, the man who split seas and brought water from stone. They did not see the tears he shed in prayer, the loneliness of leadership, the silent battles fought within the heart. One evening, as the sun set behind the ridges, turning the sky into shades of rose and amber, a group of elders approached Moses with troubled expressions. "Our people grow afraid again," one of them said. "They worry we wander without direction. They whisper that Egypt was better than this uncertainty." Moses felt a familiar sting, not anger but sadness. Would they prefer chains over freedom? They prefer the comfort of what they know, even if what they knew was suffering. Moses lifted his staff. "Then we will show them, not through force, not through anger, but through truth. Tomorrow they will see a mercy they cannot deny." But the next day brought not mercy, but another test. A storm formed suddenly over the mountains, dark clouds swirling, lightning cracking across the sky. The people panicked as fierce winds whipped the sand into blinding spirals. "Moses, what have you brought us to?" they cried. "This storm will kill us." But Moses raised his staff toward the sky. "This storm is not our destruction. God does not abandon his people." As he spoke, the winds shifted. Instead of striking the camp, the storm curved around it, forming a protective barrier. The people watched in disbelief as the violent winds circled them like a wall, shielding them from the scorching sun of the afternoon and cooling the desert air. For hours the storm raged, but never touched a single tent. The people fell to their knees, shaken and humbled. Even the doubters felt their hearts tremble with awe. Aaron whispered, "God has shown them his mercy again." Moses lowered his staff, relief washing over him. Not for them to fear us, but to remember him. As night fell, the storm vanished, leaving behind a silence so deep it felt sacred. Moses looked up at the stars. "Thank you," he whispered. But still, the journey was far from over. Each miracle brought gratitude, followed by new challenges. Each challenge brought humility, followed by new lessons. One night, as the camp slept, Moses walked alone into the quiet dunes. He carried no staff, no lantern, only the weight of leadership on his shoulders. The moon cast a soft glow on the sand, lighting his path. "Moses," a voice said gently behind him. He turned. It was an elderly woman, one of the midwives who had survived the long years of slavery. She walked slowly with a cane. Her back bent, but her spirit unbroken. "Why are you awake, mother?" Moses asked with respect. "I could ask you the same," she smiled. Moses lowered his gaze. "My heart is heavy tonight." The old woman studied him. "You carry their burdens as though they belong only to you, but they belong to all of us." Moses sighed. "A leader cannot think that way." "A leader is still a man," she replied, placing a hand over her heart. "And a man needs rest. Even prophets need rest." Her words struck him unexpectedly deep. She continued, "God chose you because your heart is soft. Do not let their noise harden it." Moses nodded slowly. "Your wisdom is a mercy." "It is simply the truth," she smiled. "Now sleep, Moses. Tomorrow has its own journey." That night, Moses slept with a peaceful heart. But the morning would bring news that would change the direction of their travels, and Moses' fate forever. And that's it for today's journey, my friends. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this story. Your support means the world. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give it your support. Now close your eyes, take a deep breath, and drift into a peaceful, sweet sleep. May your dreams be calm, filled with light, and full of hope for the days ahead. Good night, and see you in the next chapter.